Heidi, howdy, howdy, people. I am your perpetually toxic host, Bambi Sandy. I liked that little one-liner so much from the last video that I'm just going to keep recycling it because I have no creativity. And we are on our second weekend of ARCL Season 2. I want to say week, but they only happen on weekends. We are with a group called Camonet Supremacy, covering Armor Reforger in the competitive community for the game, though we'll be expanding to other games in the genre, such as Hell Let Loose or Squad. If you represent a team in the competitive community for Armor Reforger, or if you're with a group of people that would like to get into the competitive scene as a team, join the Discord using the link in the description below. Likewise, if you're simply interested in following the scene further and want to talk with the people who are participating, that's fine as well. For instance, I'm in a bunch of like Left 4 Dead 2 competitive discords, and I do not play that game. The Discord is meant to stand as a neutral space for any team or individual that fancies themselves as a competitive player, regardless of skill level, hour count, or opinions on various topics. There's no association with a particular team, tournament, or server. You can use the Discord as a backup networking tool to keep in touch with like minded people for scheduling scrimmages or for generally talking about things going on in the scene without fear of being banned or censored for wrong think. If you join and don't want people to reach out to you in direct messages, then simply adjust your Discord settings to ignore messages from people who aren't friends. It's not our job to manage your fragile ego. Did you know that the internet is the internet and it's not anyone's job to hold your hand? Crazy. Cabinet Supremacy is a collective media project slash community for the scene and won't ever host its own tournament. We feature bi-monthly community debates on the balance of the game or the competitive scene itself, along with a podcast, and then obviously these match analysis videos. Our content doesn't feature crazy overlays or editing purposefully, so aside from technical issues and bits on the front and back end of the recordings, kind of leave everything in the middle for transparency. And getting into this, if you watched the last analysis video, you can kind of skip through this section. If not, it's important stuff to keep in mind. First being the map and objectives. The map for play with the 20v20 bracket is Everon. It's left largely vanilla. The map for the 10v10 bracket is Arland, and it's got the same thing going. The terrain and objectives on Everon and Arland inherently favor certain angles and avenues to exploit, since again it's just the ordinary map. Each team is only given the opportunity to play the map once per match. That means that a team can hit a tree at the beginning of a match, kill everyone in the vehicle, and if they lose the match because of that, they don't get to replay it. There is hypothetically an option here that ARCL or the competitive scene can move with in the future where you play on a map twice, which is to say that you flip sides. So that way you kind of aggregate the experience down the middle. So you can mess up one match and still pull it around for the second half. Some rules and limitations comments. I am not up to date on most of the minor rules for the tournament. Things are also subject to change at any time, even part way through the bracket. I might reference an opportunity that might not exist since it's limited or covered by a particular rule. Weapons and vehicles have been restricted to a large degree, but there's no open source document outside of the ARCL in the least that outlines what weapons are available. ARCL staff have underlined prior to Season 2, starting that weapon availability can and will be changed to address obvious imbalances or a lack of diversity. So if everyone's using, if all 20 people on a team or all 10 people on a team are using a light machine gun because it's overpowered or something, or just because they want to use it, they'll swap that out. Supposedly, I guess that's what you would read into with that. It's also been communicated that there will be no enforcement of weapon or role diversity. So, like I said, everyone on a team could play with light machine guns and RPGs if they wanted. Some bracket notes. The bracket seeding for Season 2 does not account for skill disparities. Low tier teams will play against top tier teams. This means that within the bracket, a top tier team could have consecutive matches against low tier teams and be propelled deeper into the tournament than if they faced people from their skill level. Um, a note on camera control and audio: I am not a caster for ARCL. At no point do I or will I have control or guidance for the camera and audio. Footage is effectively referenced and dubbed over under fair use standards. Uh, this inherently means that significant parts of the action won't be viewable. So if you're a guy that participated in these matches and you're looking for a particular scene, there's a pretty good chance that you're not going to see it. Um, Casting links, Task Force Gaming, and the official ARCL streamer options. Though this particular match doesn't feature an ARCL recording, there are no shadow casting options. I got a couple of questions after the video uh, last weekend. Shadow casting is basically casting that doesn't explicitly follow the action. It's sort of like alternative point of views from like a 1,000 foot view. Ordinarily, if there's like in this context for these matches, there's two teams, so each shadow caster, and then there'd be an ordinary caster that goes around and does whatever the fuck he wants or they want. But the shadow casters would almost document like each team's rollout, and then the cameras, because both teams kind of meet in the middle of the map, um, those cameras would then cover, what the active defensive point is for quote unquote their team that they're covering, and then the other shadowcaster would cover their team's, defensive sort of view. And it gives the teams an opportunity, or people within the scene an opportunity, to really go through on a granular level, because then they'll see like all the stuff that they weren't able to see from the ordinary caster that was just following the gunplay and the cool trades and stuff. They can see like, oh, this is why my defense failed, or oh, this is what all those kill feed messages were that just didn't get covered by like the caster or whatever. um, it's kind of what that standing, or what the purpose is for those. It would be fantastic to have those in the future moving forward. Hypothetically, you just need people that are willing to float around in admin cam. I guess the talking point for not having Shadowcast or additional recording POVs is there aren't enough trustworthy people. Um, is your expectation that mid match, like people are gonna spawn in or lightning people to death, or like spawn in tanks or something? Like, can we be real? You would just remove those people. Um, but anyways, if that's an option down the road, that would be fantastic. Uh, that being said, I'm probably the only person that would really benefit from that for this content. And lastly, a hurt feelings disclaimer. If you are a team or an individual that is referenced or covered, and you have an issue with how I'm portraying an action or decision that you've made, grow a pair. This video series isn't about you specifically. This is about laying the foundation for a good culture within the scene, and to inform people if the shoe doesn't fit, don't wear it. If you didn't actually shit the bed there, cool. If you want an opportunity to say your piece about something, maybe join the Discord instead of just, crying about it in the comments or with your friends. And with that out of the way, getting into the meat and potatoes. If you're here for an action-packed video that shows your individual accomplishments or achievements, this isn't the video for you. If you don't have the patience or interest in hearing theories or explanations for actions, this also isn't the video for you. This is a compliment. Wow, my brain stopped working there. This is a compliment to the ordinary casting recordings, aimed specifically at the squad lead and kind of above level for teams within the competitive scene, or anyone who's looking for insight into that realm. This is ideally something that people can look at, ahead of their matches, or after, they've already played one and they're kind of looking to improve. So that way people can kind of get an out-of-body experience and see what mistakes other people are making so they don't have to make those mistakes, and prompts people that otherwise wouldn't have a prompt, because if you're in the game, you're not necessarily thinking about these things. You're worried about what's in front of you. Gets you thinking about like, oh, that's actually a really good way to manage people, or like, oh, two-man teams, that actually kind of does make sense. So it's kind of the intent. So ordinarily, at this point, I'd speak a little bit about the teams that are participating in the match. However, for the first time, probably as a norm, I could not find a good lead on either team's Discord or representation. So I wasn't able to collect that information. Ordinarily I would go through and I would tell, because the people that are watching this or even participating in season 2 might not know anything about the teams that they're going against. So, it's kind of cool to go through and see like, how many servers does this community or team operate? When did they actually start? Oh, they started 2 months ago. Wow, that's crazy. They're really good. How do they recruit? Oh, they do like a selective application system. Oh, okay. What does that really mean? Um, how often do these teams scrimmage and train? Fucking, probably only on one hand the amount of teams that have actually taken the time to scrimmage other teams in the lead up to season 2. But like, you get to hear that stuff. What do they think they are? If a team completely shits the bed on every front, that makes me feel bad. But if they're saying that they're like hot shit and they're top tier, then maybe that's a good wake up call, and everyone can see like, oh, the hubris of this one team is just incredible. Can't give any of that information. Uh, the ARCL Discord obviously features all of the participating teams, you might think. But I'd been told that I wasn't allowed to reach out to any team in the ARCL Discord for any reason, and that was before I got banned. I have since supposedly been unbanned. So that's not actually the option that you would think it would be. So anyways, moving on. With the actual map, I'm going to do this for each video. This is the first time that I'm showcasing Ireland, right? So, 513. This is the map. So south to north, you've got Southern Maine on the coast. You've got Arleville, Highfield, Signal Hill, Timber Ridge, New Farm, and the Northern Maine. And don't worry, I've got exactly what those look like. So this is the Southern Maine. The command tent placements for everything except for New Farm are exact. Obviously, where people place down individual modules from there is going to be different, but that is the Southern Maine. And then you've got Arleville here, which is just up a hill / valley from the Southern Maine, indicated here by the white circle. It's the command tent right here, kind of pressed up against this barn. You'll see that throughout the match. Then you got kind of the what I like to orient people to each screenshot to show kind of where north is. But then over here you can actually see the next objective, which is, let's zoom out so I'm not screwed for later, which is Highfield. Highfield, if I did not outline it in white, what a terrible person. Incredible. What, am I a professional or what? This objective, you'll see this is fought over pretty consistently, so you'll be able to see all the angles and stuff. Kind of gives me some Entre-Deux vibes, where everything kind of up around here is downhill enough that it's pretty easy to walk up and flank and work. But then once you're actually on the objective, it's kind of just flat ground. Then you've got the low wall here to kind of work around. So again, big reminder of whatchamacallit, Entre-Deux. And then you've got Signal, shown in white again for the command tent. This is a ridge line, technically. Lots of dips and cuts and saddles, though, so it doesn't really feel like one continuous piece. The command tent is on the east side of this, so a significant portion of the ridge as a feature is actually on the other side of the command tent. So you'll see throughout the match a lot of people try to work this west side, but it's probably actually better to just stick to the east side of it. That's how much land mass is kind of there. It's pretty bare as well once you're there. Then after that, we've got Timber Ridge. You can see the objectives are very close together, right? So not even, say, a 2-minute walk, not a sprint, a walk away is Timber Ridge right here at this crossroads intersection. The command tent does face east, northeast. And the way there's not a lot of fighting that happens here. So if you're looking for insights in through this recording on how to kind of work this area in particular, I'm sorry, probably not going to have a whole lot to offer you, except that this style of forest that surrounds the objective, most, it's how they did the forest generation for Everon and Arland. Most forest is pretty bare, and you can really see from like one end to the next. But for instance, on Everon, there's a good amount of like boulders and dips and little gullies and downed trees and stuff from here and there, little ponds and stuff. None of that exists around this objective. You can kind of see these aren't boulders. These are like brush piles. They are very small and insignificant, and probably don't stop bullets either. So that is going to be rough, probably moving forward. Then after that, continuing in a northward fashion, we've got New Farm. Never saw anyone fight over this objective. Never even saw it referenced or the camera pan over it. So kind of just spitballed where the command tent was going to be, if I'm honest. But this is kind of the right objective here. And then you've got Northern Maine is right here, actually on the other side of these cliffs from New Farm, which paired with what I'll mention with the timings means that the northern spawn is wildly fucking overpowered. Because all you have to do, there's all sorts of like little trails and stuff, and there are sections for these cliffs where you can just kind of walk up and basically everything from here to here is not perfectly flat ground, but way more favorable to fight over. So if your back's up against the wall and you're spawning from main and you're trying to contest your first objective, way more favorable, way easier to work than if you were on the south side of the map. So that'll be interesting to see if that plays or is realized. And then, as promised, timings. Here are the timings for Arland. Unlike the timings for Everon, this map is so small and the terrain is in such a way that doing certain timings with all of the vehicles didn't make sense, because these timings really just show you, okay, without any fighting underway whatsoever, I don't have to, my guys can be good shooters, bad shooters, console players, PC players, none of that matters if we're just measuring vehicle timings, right? So some of these vehicles take so long to get to the other objectives that there's no point in doing timings for those, because it's so slow that, if you want to get a logistics truck to Signal Hill, like, the timing for that from main doesn't matter. Your ability to hold the objective and just general gunplay, for instance, is kind of what is the determining factor there. So hopefully that kind of makes sense. Also, I was losing my mind while doing some of these timings because there's fucking dragon's teeth and like some weird spots, and I just couldn't make corners, and so there you go. The real reason is because I'm a bitch, supposedly. All right, so because of all that, because of all the timings, and kind of what I'd mentioned with this, North Main to first objective vibe, uh, the North side is heavily favored for everything, basically. It's ridiculous. This is going to be a really good, if it's not already being discussed. This should be a really great showcase, at least for the 10v10s on Arland, for why rotating sides is super fucking important. Because if you're on the southern side of the map, figuratively and literally, you have an incredible uphill battle. An incredible uphill battle. To the extent that, like, uh, maybe, maybe just, you know, participate in this one for the fun. So that way you don't get mad when you lose. So, the staging starts at, for everyone following along, at 6:43. Just as we're kind of seeking to this, I would just like to point out to everyone, leave this kind of going in the background. This match is very short, very short. Uh, Also, there's only one camera perspective, so there's only, one set of experiences to make notes on and kind of go through. Also, there's half the people total. So not only is it shorter, not only is the map kind of tighter, the tolerances are tighter, I would say. There's fewer people to die, fewer people to have good flanks, um, fewer people, fewer opportunities to kind of pause and comment on something. So I would be really surprised if this video gets to like the hour mark. Whereas like with the last recording of the last match, I really kind of had to push it at the end because I was otherwise it would have been a 3-hour video. So the staging starts at 6:43. The actual match doesn't start until 11:40. Here we are. Now, I had made the comment before for the Everon match that everyone took their sweet fucking time to get out of main. Maybe that's just how that like those mains are positioned. But this match, is literally the first thing that I wrote down. Right, these guys spawn in the Humvee and then they immediately fucking get in, and then they drive away, which is pretty cool. From this recording, you would think that there's something over here. There kind of fucking isn't, right? So I like started up high, energy wise, and then I immediately just kind of sunk down from here. So on the southern side, I would like to make the comment before I forget that this is TacGru in red, and then on the north side in blue is Dutch Tactical Gaming or Gamers. So he's obviously driving down a road. I can tell you, big fucking waste of time going west down this road. Infinitely quicker, significantly quicker to go down this road like everyone else does. So those guys are kind of just leaving main. These are the dedicated logistics guys for DTG for this match anyways, so don't mind them. They're not behind the ball by any means. These guys are already going. And you add to that, and the north side of the map is inherently favored with timings. Not looking great. You can probably assume what's going on. If you kind of notice here, I'm just doing this in real time. I'll mention it later. Um, yeah, each Jeep's only got 2 guys in it. They didn't pack a bunch of people into one vehicle. That'll become relevant here in a minute. First time I'm seeing people use the Jeeps, by the way. They are better in almost everywhere to the Humvees. The unarmed Humvees, anyways. At 13:15, I'm going to kind of let this play up into that moment. Very tight. Because of the timing disparity, you really have to be booking it out of Southern Maine. These guys were not. Also, so the road kind of hooks right here. If you're looking for a better way to work this, as soon as the end of this shed happens, you can hook a right and go up to this main road. You'll actually get to this second for the southern spawn objective faster because you can use the pavement to really push it. These guys going over here hit a tree. And then they decide to go somewhere else for whatever reason. Huge. I'm sure with how they stick to this, they're doing something specific here. They, really did mean to take that turn. So I'm not going to say that this one issue ruins the match for them. Doesn't help, though. Doesn't help. Now, at 13:36, which is basically where we're at right here. Come on up. You can see not only the disparity in where the teams are at, but also how good DTG's spread is. So what you'll kind of notice immediately, the camera kind of hones in on it, is Felix will die here in the Jeep. He's trying to rush into the objective. I don't have a note to make a mention of it later, so I'll just say it now. If you're trying to push to contest the middle objective from the southern spawn immediately, really kind of your only play is actually to stick with these power lines. There's a little bit of a natural gully right here, and then that gully continues as kind of a natural ditch right up to the top of this hill right here, even after the trees kind of end. Highly recommend working that because you should know, especially if you're watching this video, if you have the southern spawn, they're going to beat you timing wise. They're probably already going to be set up for you to some extent on this road. So you need to set yourself up with advantageous ground. So I would probably drop off right here and then walk it in to some extent, or fan out, or whatever you're going to do. And then you've also got these guys that are bombing it down the main road. I don't notice these guys for a minute. Dies there. These guys still going. At 14:12. This is just a really great camera view to show like how delightful and well put together this spread looks. I mentioned at the beginning that all these guys rolled out in 2-man pairs. So you would assume, I'm assuming anyways, that they're in buddy teams and they work their ground as buddy teams for a minute. Basically all the way up until the end of the match where it's obvious that they've got it in the bag and they can kind of fucking spread out to a large extent. But you've got people over here, so from a middle objective standpoint, right? They're not expecting anyone from the north. So this is more okay, well, what's going to happen, on this kind of like northwest side, if anything's going to happen. So they've got southern side people, they've got eastern side people, they've got western side people. Ugh, chef's kiss. Dutch. I was going to say European, but Dutch as hell. Just well, well put together. Very nice, very nice. And with kind of hindsight, to a degree, you have to assume that all the people that are going to watch this analysis video have actually already seen the match proper, or at the very least, they kind of know which team won. So hopefully, I'm not spoiling anything here, but they kind of hold this for a minute, and in holding it for a minute, in the last analysis video, I had pointed to a couple of times, if you're facing a team that you don't really know, never played against them before, you don't know what reputation they have, you don't know what they're going to kind of lean on, you haven't seen any recordings of like them playing, or you don't have any insights, right? You kind of have to feel out a lot of your pacing and whether you can get away with things during the match. So I saw a lot of that in this because they do defense on the center objective for an appropriate time. You might otherwise, had I not mentioned that, have thought that they were kind of, lazy or lacking. There's lots of opportunity for them to push to the next objective. Next objective's over here, and you can see right now, they're all spread out on the center objective, and no one from TacGru is interested in it. So you might come away from a moment like this or a picture like this by thinking, well, kind of been could have been quicker, could have pushed a couple of guys over there by now. Nope. That they have no idea what they're going up against. They're just kind of letting it ride, kind of waiting it out. And I see that to a degree in what these northern guys are doing. These guys probably aren't actually here in case there's an attack from the north. These guys are probably actually here in case they hear shooting on the objective proper. These guys aren't up here. The command tent is right here. None of these guys are actually here on the ridge. They're kind of giving an opportunity to feel out like, where is everyone at? Let's listen, kind of feel it out. Start taking this first objective with the logistics trucks. This is effective because I would just point out until they push this next game proper update. Objective capture does not scale based on how many people you have there. So on one hand, I want to say there's three things that you're trying to address with your rollout. One, you have to get a body on your first objective as quick as possible, so that way you can waterfall the capture of further objectives quicker, right? That gives you opportunities. No one's going to meet you here at this first objective, but people might meet you on your second objective or your third objective. You want those points to be spawnable as quick as possible. So that's one of the things that you're trying to address with a good rollout. Second, you want to vie for control of the center objective, right? Because map play is the only thing that matters in this. I know. Cross your heart. Hope today. And then the third thing that you're trying to address is like any specialty move or play that you're trying to do, right? Like a leapfrog to the objective past the center, or if you have a helicopter at the beginning, like is available on Everon, maybe you are trying to go for their first objective or something like that. So until though the capture scaling based on people gets fixed with the game, you don't necessarily want to send a vehicle that wouldn't ordinarily go here, right? Like a Jeep or a Humvee or a Guy or something like that. You know, you're not really booking it to get here because the capture scaling isn't working. Um, and also, if you're not doing like a big hot shot play, like all DTG is really doing is just holding the center objective. They're playing pretty conservatively. They're not doing anything special. Then you don't need the capture speed to capitalize on something. So they're still kind of hanging out here. You know, these guys are still kind of watching this east side, looking for vehicles that are driving by or whatever. These guys are doing basically the same thing. You know, Keeled is, you know, they're both straddling either side of the road. Kevin has worked up so that way he can actually see down this road. Just take in mind though, like even though these are the most forward guys, they're still right next to the objective. It's right here. It's not over here. It's right here. So these guys, if they're wrong, they can double back easily, right? If these guys die, they've got a great, you know, in radar. This is going to mean nothing to anyone, but I'm going to throw it in just because maybe one person listening will be in, you know, 5 years will be like, oh shit. In radar, for land-based radars, anyways, for mortars and rockets and stuff like that, there's something called like the T angle. You kind of maximize your track volume, you know. So you have better you're a better spotter if you can set yourself to the uh, side of the enemy as opposed to having them come right at you, because that's more pixels that can move across your screen or enter a bush, stuff like that. So these guys are actually well set up for that as well. Um, doop it doop it doop it doop doo. That's 1433 basically. Yep. 1508. So this kind of rolls well enough, and bam, kind of a callback to this original Humvee that was driving down the road. You're like, oh shit, what did that Humvee do? I didn't even catch it in the moment either because it just completely went out of my memory. Because it, and when I saw these people initially, I was like, fucking what? What are these guys doing? You know, if they're attacking the north side, like this is 2 mountains away, basically. What's going on here? And when I originally watched through this, I didn't catch it because they don't have a means. There's no admin tool currently to highlight tents. This is DTG's second objective over here in this clearing. These guys have gone for a specialty play against DTG by going for the point after their mid cap. Now, there's a lot on. There's a there are a lot of moving pieces when you're talking about you and your role, your team's role, what the guy next to you can do. You know, we talk about a lot of this stuff, so I won't get super into it here. Talk a lot in the podcast series about, you know, how can you play, how do you play, how do you identify if, you know, you've got shit gunfighters that can't hold their own, you know, so they're kind of only significant value is like being a body on an objective or keeping bodies off of an objective, you know. You know, how do you move as opposed to if you have a really great group of guys that's just off the wall, cracked out of their minds, and sort of, you know, what you can. There's a lot that goes into like your skill level and what you can do as a team and what you can do in an area and what you kind of have to set up beforehand. So within all of that, honestly, straightforward math, it's all pretty logical, but it's just a lot of stuff that people don't really think about ahead of time. Certainly, it's really hard once you're in a team to get leadership that'll go through and self-identify fucking anything. But if you're gonna go for a specialty play like this, you need to treat it like a ladder, right? If you're trying to get up onto the roof of your house, You need the rungs before the top rung. Otherwise, you're kind of working out a weird task, right? So if you're going for a play like this, there's one of two things that these guys can do here. They can keep DTG from capturing, and that's it. You know, throw a little wrench in the works to get an upper hand somewhere over here, right? Or they're holding this ground completely, so there's an intent difference here. There's just being a wrench in the works and then trying to actually work this. Both are legitimate options. If you've gone through in training experiences or environments, scrimmages, whatever, and your TacGru and you've seen, that's this center objective really doesn't favor us. I don't either. We're not going to be able to hold our own over here. Our guys just kind of suck at it. We really liked playing over here more. We're more confident over here. Or DTG or TacGru has gone through and they're like, well, we know. Not that I'm shit talking, but I don't think anyone actually does timings and makes decisions off of the timings so far. But we know that they beat us here, so we have to find some other way to be relevant or to take the fight to them. So we're going to try and actually hold here, so that way our team can do something that then pushes this to the spot that's being fought over. In both instances, you still have to account for the objectives that lead up to this thing, brother, right? If you want to play over here and not over here, you got to have a way to capture this objective. You got to sneak a guy in. You had to have dropped people off that are fighting over the objective now, and that's nothing to say about your objective. This is yours if you're TacGru. This is your fucking job, right? Everything leading up to the center objective, the center objective, wishy-washy, So maybe you expect that you're better than the other team and you go for it. That's not like an in the bag thing, though. This is yours. You don't have a way to capture this objective right now. So, like, from a planning perspective, your play way over here. Hmm. 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 Uh, so, that aside, that diatribe aside, just make sure that I'm not missing anything so I don't have to backtrack super hard. Boop-a-da-boop-a-da-boop-a-da-boop. 15, 13. Yep, see, almost did it. These guys, right? Kevin's, Keelds. I'll mention him a lot here in a minute, but Keeld is kind of like the forward guy. He's the probe, Kevin, playing a little conservatively. He's backing Keeld up, watching kind of long angles, but he's also kind of set up so that way if Keeld misses a shot, he's still by the road. He can take a rocket shot or something like that. Kevin, if I remember right, has a light machine gun, but I think also at the beginning he's got an RPG. If these guys are the forward guys, it's kind of like I was pointing out with the last match analysis with the Saboteur team that got dropped off on the northwest side of Montanak in the industrial area, and then they kind of walked around to the south side of Montanak. I had pointed out in that moment that those guys were going to be really kind of in an irrelevant spot if anything in Montanak happened because they were so far away that it would have been better actually if they were working their way to the south side, if they kind of stuck to the edge of the town, because then if there was a vehicle that drove west of them through those fields that they ended up walking through, they could have just taken a shot at it, probably hit it. And also if there was, a big bout of gunfire or something like that in Montanak, then they could push in from an off angle kind of spot and be relevant. You're kind of multi-tool, I think, is what I was talking about, where, you at any given time, if you're an individual in one of these matches, you got to always be thinking about, like, how can I be relevant for as many opportunities as possible? Because these matches are always kind of moving. Keeled over here. So this is, just for context, 1433 is where I made the comment that, hey, they've actually kind of been holding the spread for like 20 seconds, something like that. Yep. So at 1413, these guys are all where they need to be, and they're hanging out and they're waiting, right? So throw it to where was that? 1513. Almost exactly a minute later, right? What's happening in this period of time? Well, DTG is like, all right, well, we're not hearing any gunfire. We're not seeing any enemies on the center objective, so I guess they're not going for it. What's going on? So these two guys, they're already forward guys, are sent to what should again be TacGru's objective to see like the fuck's going on. Yeah, what are we doing? Guild. Here's vehicle audio. Wraps around. And I like this. I'm going to mention this a lot. You know, I forgot to mention it in the Everon match analysis recording, but I am going to be building scoreboards / leaderboards, not based on kills. So maybe a scoreboard isn't right, but I'm going to build player standings from all these match analysis videos. Keeld's in the top 5. He does some shit in this match that showcases on like a lot of levels. This guy's got it going. So I like what Keeld kind of does. He pushes from bush to bush, kind of eats around the edges. He doesn't just run it straight in. You'll notice that multiple times throughout this. Here at 1539, you've got TacGru sitting in a Humvee on their most forward objective, which inherently means that they don't care, right? Surely, you know, they're not expecting DTG to be here. Why not? I, I've watched this back like 3 times. Not the whole match, but just kind of like the last, 15 minutes leading up to this. Like, I can't justify it. Usually I'm pretty good at like stepping in other people's shoes and like giving kind of devil's advocate pieces, but I just don't think they care. So, what this could be, we're professional theorizers here. I'd mentioned it in the Everon match, and thankfully, from neither team did it seem like the shoe fit. None of those fucking people wore it. Which is just a fancy, weird way of saying that it wasn't the case there. Think it might be the case here, especially if you see, TacGru's play for the rest of the match. This could be indicative of one kind of top-down guy, maybe not even in this Humvee right here. One top-down guy that's telling everyone, nah, just don't even get out of the vehicle. We're just capturing the objective. We're like, we're just kind of hanging out here and waiting. Because this isn't natural. This isn't normal. Like, they both have fucking maps up. Like, what are we doing? This is a fucking 4-man that should be pulling defense on what is their objective. I can't overemphasize, like, this is fucking yours. This is why, in the ordinary game, and squad as well, this is why we call these back caps. The expectation is that they're yours. Keeld pushes around. Obviously, he's still, here in the Humvee, but pushes around. Keeld has a GL. But also, Keeld doesn't really know quite like where everyone is. He doesn't want to throw his first GL at the Humvee if there's someone to his left at the command tent. So he uses this opportunity, sees the Humvee. Obviously, this is just a fucking straight up. You can see both people sitting in the front seat. Goes for just ordinary rifle shots. Gets a guy. I don't think in the match either team can see the kill feed, but if I was killed, I'd know that I fucking killed that guy. Right? Humvee backs away. He lobs his first GL just in case anyone's like standing next to the Humvee, right? Second GL, goes to the command tent, right? Not only does it go to the command tent, come on. It's the doorway right there. That thing explodes right on the outside of the doorway. Maybe I'm just overhyping myself or him. Like that was absolutely perfection, right? But it's kind of like right where the window is for the front of the. You can see the map board through the window actually right here, but that's perfect if you're trying to fucking kill someone that's actually inside the command tent. You know, you throw it at the windows or you throw it at the doorway. So, anyways, I like this initial bout. You know, he hasn't really showcased a whole lot of crazy movement or anything like this. But I had mentioned in the fucking Everon video, right? If you have a GL roll, right? Your backpack should be full of these things. This should almost be like your primary weapon. This isn't a tertiary option. You lobbing nades into bushes, into tree lines, into objectives, at low walls. This is where it's at. This is your bread and butter. So he works it. He throws them. And then, in the same way that I had mentioned with the Everon match, there was an instance where smoke was used not as cover or concealment, but as a distraction. I like this because it's just anytime that I see people not being fucking pussies and pretending that like the smoke's gonna save them, I'm gonna highlight it. So he pushes back, still kind of trying to figure out like, you know, what he's working with, obviously. He doesn't want to push super hard and heavy in there. You have to kind of think like for the average player, which Keel is not. He doesn't know that the only people on the he obviously saw the flag, so he knows that they don't have it. But he doesn't know that the only people on the objective for the enemy team are in the Humvee. Why would that be the case, right? So he doesn't necessarily know everything that's going on there, so he pulls back, right? Now, these guys fighting over this back objective. Might be able to see it when the camera pans. It's sort of a rough way. Come on. You can do it. Bam. So they don't have Signal Hill yet, but they've already got Timber Ridge. Now, just as almost like a bookmark, not that there's anything to really call to the situation, but right here at 1704, they are capturing Signal Hill. DTG is capturing Signal Hill. They already have Timber Ridge. TacGru is trying to fight over Timber Ridge, but the objective is already taken. So I had said that you're either doing one of two plays when you push like an enemy's back point, second or first. You're either trying to keep them, the other team, from capturing the objective, or you're trying to force the fighting to be here. Implicit in that second idea is actually that you're trying to even then keep the enemy team from capturing this objective, right? Because otherwise, none of your stuff matters here. So they fight over this area for a minute. They die. It doesn't work out. But, and then someone, somewhere, I was just going to end it there and then jump ahead, but someone is going to say, well, they didn't do nothing. They blew up the logistics truck. What is the logistics truck worth? Oh, right. Nothing. Not even worth the supplies that are in the truck. What are kills worth? Nothing. Because they're not on a relevant objective. The only thing that matters are the objectives you own. So, again, moving on. So, yeah, keeled kind of working this over here. By this point, I think Kevin died from something earlier. Something. Obviously, he's not here. He's got to respawn. So Keeled is kind of alone over here. TacGru now own the objective. These guys, one of them has respawned because only one person died out of the Humvee. Big question mark. But anyways, here follows, just as a separate bookmark, here follows my thorough ass kissing of Keeled. So, Keeled initially is over here. No, come back. He's over here kind of on the edge of the objective. Now, this is going to be our first overlay opportunity. High field. So, initially, brush and everywhere. Why isn't that appearing? So initially, Humvee is right here, and Keeled is over here. He kind of like pushes up to like right here initially, but for the most part, he's kind of what I call eating around the edges. You know, he's in this area. You call that kind of eating around the edges because, use a good color, there's the space in between both objectives, right? If this worked out well, DTG, or sorry, TacGru did on this objective, right? You would suspect that a majority of the fighting would be happening in here. The terrain that's directly between the two objectives, right? Everyone vibe with that? Everyone get that, right? So when I say eating around the edges, I mean, kind of sitting on the outskirts of this area and looking into it. Obviously people are kind of, looking around in other directions as well. But positioning wise, this is kind of what you want to do for a lot of these matches. You want to understand your terrain well enough to just kind of position yourself and eat around the edges. You don't want to be in the middle because then you can get killed from a multitude of directions. But if you're kind of on the outside, a more extreme version of this, if you really wanted to make it to this objective and didn't care about any of this stuff, is you could wrap all the way around and come in this way. Or you can hug this low wall once you get here, and you'll actually see that a lot. So this is what Keeled's doing. Then, once the Humvee is gone, obviously he knows that kind of the enemy's still in the area, because the Humvee, the last time you see it in the recording anyways, it kind of like stops right here in this tree line. And Keeled has pushed back to kind of like here. So he was really forward right here, pushes back. I also think that this is great positioning based on what his expectations now are. In the same way that we were talking about kind of like where do you expect the enemies and put yourselves on the outside, eat around the edges. He now expects that the enemy are going to be either in the command tent, around the command tent, or over here because he just saw the Humvee fucking back into the tree line, right? So his expectations for that are now here. So he pushes, if he stayed here, that wouldn't make sense. He's a little too forward, a little too aggressive, a little too open. So he pushes back so that way his focus can be all of this in front of him, effectively. Now, as we kind of get into this, come on, skip past. Nope. It's almost explicitly what I didn't care about. Nope. Come on. Now we circle back with him, right? Come on. Show better. Now, here, it's a little rough to see. This is actually a split road, and the ground is not even on both sides. So we're going to signify that with this. Make it so it's a little less cancer to kind of look at. All right, so he doesn't want to cross this road. This is still just one guy. He didn't really know what's going on over here. The whole pacing and what you'd expect is already kind of out the window because TacGru aren't fighting over the center objective, and they also kind of don't seem to want their objective. So alone, afraid, he is not. Keel just kind of keeps on with what he's doing. He pushes up to here, and then ultimately he'll kind of stop here. Bush to bush, just hanging out. He's not standing in the open, it's just hanging. Now, he didn't have to push forward, but this almost isn't a push forward. This is really just kind of a lateral, because again, his expectation is that people are over here. So he's really just moving to the side. He shot at a bunch of people kind of over here. Granted, he was on the road. And then he kind of wrapped around, and now he's in a completely different space, right? So if you ever have the opportunity in a gunfighting situation, whether you're on offense or on defense, everything relies on how well you can play on people's expectations. And this is just a really simplistic way to do that, right? Set himself up in a bush where he wasn't before. You'd figure that if Gaz was expecting him to be in this chunk of trees, he'd have fucking, crept up, crouched, something. Didn't. Kind of runs up, does a little check. He's looking over here initially. Then he does kind of like a quick look over because he's next to the bush. So, you figure he's kind of looking to see if anyone's in that. Kind of looks over here, then crouches. Boom. I do have to poke fun at this tiny little moment. He's waiting, watching. Why the lean? Why the lean into the bush? What are we doing here? Why does everyone feel like they need to lean? Is it because he's like trying to lean around the tree? Well, technically, based on like where he was standing, if he'd have leant to the right, it would. I leaned in real life. He would have seen around the tree better. It's weird. People's fascination with leaning fucking confuses me. All right, so he's effectively here shown where he's at. Now, his repositioning is just to like completely remove himself. Right? Good shit. Yeah, he chose like the fucking overlay that they never use and probably never will for any of these other fucking matches. I don't get it. Come on. And you don't see it there, but he has pushed back to a new bush, right? So methodical, knows he needs to reposition, knows when he needs to reposition. He capitalized on something right here, pushed back, right? And now expectations are already thrown out of whack again because people are going to spend a lot of time creeping up to this bush, or they'll wrap around to like get behind him or whatever the fuck, and that'll all happen effectively in front of Keel. I know the glazing is just donut levels. And then back here on the objective proper, you've got kind of a representation. Yeah, you're only playing against 10 people, right? So part of me, if I was an ordinary watcher, I would say like, wow, it's kind of fucking shitty defense. They're like basically stacked up right on the objective. No, it kind of makes sense. You had this kind of big attack over here with like 4 TacGru guys, so that's 4 people accounted for. They had to respawn somewhere. They only just got this objective, so 4 guys. You have to assume that the other team's got at least like 2 logistics people at least one, right? So, um, what are you really expecting for an attack on this center objective? If they wanted it, they'd have got after it. They haven't. So you don't really need to keep people way down here or way over here to see what happens from that point on, right? You can kind of collapse people into the objective proper, and there are all sorts of opportunities and situations where you'll want to do that as a team, because the closer you are to the center objective, the to the center of the objective, I should say, within reason, as long as you're not standing in like weird obvious spots and stuff. Um, the quicker your reaction times are if you were looking in an incorrect area. If we set all of our guys up on this, west side, and the one guy that we have on the east side dies, now all of a sudden we have to completely run uphill and then deal with that, right? So these guys kind of set themselves up, spread out across the top of the ridge. And they're basically just set up here, not to expect guys up there, but to be able to react to gunfire and sounds and where they need to be further from there. Now, I'd kind of mentioned before, again, this is just kind of tooting my own trumpet, eating around the edges. That's exactly what Big Nasty does here. Kind of comes in from the road, but really just along the tree line, and then he pushes over to the other side of the or to the inside of the low wall, and then walks it in. Lots more drawing with this one. You got Carlos over here doing the same thing, pushing up in buddy pairs. Kiel, I don't know, maybe like the guy that he was partnered with before, or initially Kevin, is just like respawning or doing something. But so Kiel here has has gone from here, and he is wrapped around now, and is now working this area. Again, though, playing off those expectations, right? The enemy can be sort of in this area. Well, you got Carlos coming up here. He's not seeing anything. You got Big Nasty right here. He's not seeing anything over here. So the enemy can kind of only be over here now in these trees, like on the other side of the road. So Kier is working with that expectation. His view is that he has to account for this space now. So that's kind of why he's facing the direction that he is and stuff. Oh dear God, I minimized that. Pushes up, nice and slow. And then there's a funny moment here where they're effectively in the same bush, but they can't hear each other. I'm going to say that this moment either comes from both players playing with like 15% sound volume for effects, or Kiel is playing with music in the background because he's on one. That's why he doesn't even hear this guy throw his nades, really. So, back to the highlights, or back to the bookmarks. 16, 17. Oh, that was fucking forever ago. We'll skip past that. 22. Sorry. Stay with me. It's like 7 points about Keel, so I'm just scrolling through. Yeah, so we're here kind of at, right now we're at 22, but at like 21:30, right? So Keel is pushed over into this kind of tree line right here, and you'd seen that Big Nasty was kind of over here by the low wall. Layuz is the only TacGru guy that's on the objective. I missed the pan over. So Big Nasty's right here. Yeah, Layuz is the only guy that's kind of hanging out here. So Big Nasty and then Kiel push into the objective. You have to figure that at this point, they get the capture notification that they're capturing, right? What does that tell you? Well, it immediately tells you how many enemies are in the area. Because if you're only capturing with 2 people, there's only 1 guy that you have to account for, if not, anyone. So that happens. 2043. Wow, going kind of backwards here. In talking about like Carlos, Big Nasty pushing up over here, this is, I mentioned at the beginning, DTG for a really long time on the center objective kind of just play conservative. They wait, they see if there's an attack coming, and then it's very obvious to a large degree after even just like a minute of waiting that there's nothing coming, right? So they push like Kiel up to the next objective. Kiel's throughout his gunfighting and stuff, you can tell just by seeing like a lack of movement. Like, hey, there's supposed to be like 5 guys here. There's fucking only 1 or 2. So DTG kind of right around this stage address like, hey, all right, they don't want their objective. They're not really doing a whole lot with it, so we'll take it, right? But they still maintain people on defense. 2230. Felix here kind of pushes it in. Really great RPG shot. I just wanted to, people that play everyone in these fucking matches, because there's no role restrictions. Everyone can have an RPG, right? So no one's really an anti-tank guy. Except that there will always be people on each team that love playing the sniper role. People that only have an interest in doing the logistics jobs. And there are people. It's typically only 1. There are people that just love anti-tank play. And a huge piece of that comes from being able to hit basically what you want when you want. So comes up. He not only does kind of like a running come up, it's one thing to kind of, stand up with the RPG and stare at what you want to hit and kind of go, a little bit higher and then take the shot. This guy basically runs up to it, shoots, and I don't actually think that he was intending to hit the low wall here. Because I don't think he has any idea that there's a guy on the other side of this low wall. I think he's aiming at Carlos over here. Where's Carlos at? Is the camera angle even really going to show? Carlos is over here on this berm. Oh, maybe he does fucking... What's he shooting at here? Oh, he does know that Big Nasty's here. You know what? Live. I'll say it. He missed his spot then. But look at that, though. He basically... I didn't realize that I didn't have this full screen the entire time. He basically hits where Carlos is. How fucking crazy is that? Maybe, I'm willing to say when I'm wrong, though. I'll say that that wasn't absolute skill. It was just happenstance. Just convenient. If I have the ability, though, I'm going to ask Carlos if that hit him. All right. 2405 is the next notable moment. Now, Felix has pushed up to the west side of his command tent. Shout out to being the only person on the objective, by the way, for your team. DTG has taken the objective. They were capturing that whole time. So he's on the west side of this. He should have like a good, yeah, right here. I did the wrong timestamp. So he's got, yeah, he's initially, this is again just a comment on like good situational awareness and like good core gunplay, right? So he's up on this low wall right here initially. Carlos dies to a fucking grenade. Crazy. Comes over the low wall. Kind of looks at some tracer fire over here from like the right side of the command tent. Pushes up to it. Gets up on it. Shoots at a guy, right? And then immediately varies his angle. Comes out. Swings back around to the left. I'm doing hand signals that no one else can see. And boom! He downs North Korea because he varied his angle. Lots of grenades going off here. Okay, not that I'm telling people what to do with their teams, but first of all, if you're an individual on a team and you're not a fucking squad lead, like you're not a leadership guy, you need to see yourself like a professional athlete. Your career is your career, and you know, over the next like 6-7 years, if we're all even still playing this game in 6-7 years, you're going to be in a lot of different teams and stuff like that. You're the one that kind of manages you and what you need to improve on, and how you manage your craft. You know, you need to see it almost like you're a contractor. You know, you might be hired onto a job to be the contractor, like, you know, the architect or carpenter or the electrics guy or the HVAC guy on a house. But you know, you're bringing to the table really like you you know, you represent your craft. There aren't 15 other fucking carpentry guys on that job that are like in charge of you. No, it's on you, right? So opportunities like this, you know, this is just good core gunplay of like knowing if it's worth repeaking and just naturally, you know, it's not. So back up away. You know, he didn't stay inside the low wall to just peek around the corner right here. Backed up, came away, and then wedged it from far, and it worked out great for him because that's a piece of what North Korea was expecting. He's expecting either right up against the command tent or he's expecting right up over here. So, again, knowing how to play on expectations and like what do I need to do to throw people off and what can I provide this area and stuff like that. That's where it's at. 2449 is our next moment. This is a really good aerial shot. You know, TacGru, they're coming in to retake this objective. But are they, though? You've got all these fucking people that are over here that, like, they're not pushing into the center objective. It'll become clear kind of what they do here. Think that this originated as, like, an attack on the center objective, and actually furthers the point that I'm about to make, but, and then they decide to not do that. You've got all these people here. Felix is basically on his fucking own. You know, I had made the comment before that, like, the terrain right around here kind of drops off. So Gaz isn't seeing really this at all. He's not, these guys aren't part of this fight at all. You know, Gaz, from where he's at, right up on the low wall, might see like a couple pixels of a helmet or something like that, but that's the best he's gonna fucking get, right? Felix is alone. These guys need to fucking push in, get relevant right now, right? You kind of just see like they just sit there. This don't really, they're not doing anything. Felix dies. He probably would have died even before these guys pushed in, but like what, bodies on the point, right? The fighting. Usually I say that from the perspective of like fight over a relevant objective in such a way that the enemy can't just simply respawn. But like distance wise, like even if you're fighting quote unquote over the objective, you have to be here to keep the enemy from respawning, not over here. You know, if you want to sit over here to, support like a bigger push, maybe two or three guys are wrapping around, so you're just maintaining this angle, that's one thing. But like, you're it, and you're nowhere near kind of helping. I kind of think that that's indicative of like not talking to each other. Spatial awareness, communication, Felix knowing, like, where are the people on my team? These guys knowing, like, what's going on here? Where am I needed? Do I have to wait for someone to explicitly tell me where I'm needed, or no? That's really common. That's as a Joe, I've mentioned it once before, and I mentioned it all the time in the podcast setting, and I won't go super into it, but yeah, as a Joe, what you need to work on, the difference between you being bad and you being good, is really simple and kind of easy to master. It's just hard to find time throughout the day. You got to play the game to a certain degree, like a lot, repetition, gunplay, communication, map knowledge, right? It's all just kind of comes naturally as you play the game. Well, the things that you need to master to be a good squad lead is, you know, being able to build a picture inside your mind, being able to kind of project, like, I hear that gunfire, this is probably what's happening. I hear that it's, someone's dumping into something. That probably means that someone's trying to clear out like a bush. It's really hasty. If you hear people giving kind of like pop shots that are like pew, 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 that's distant fighting. That's not something that really requires a lot of fucking right here, right now energy. So you piece together a lot of stuff that's going on in the distance. And I'm not saying that these guys are necessarily squad leads, or, that they're bad players for not kind of reading that situation outside of someone explicitly telling them, like, hey, push in now, now, now. But like, this guy needs to be able to build a picture to know all he has to do is wrap up to this fucking low wall. He could crush all these guys, right? But you got to know that that's what's needed. Shout out to Kevin. He's back. All right, now, this is one of my favorite moments. Kiel here gives me hope for humanity. It fucking sucks because, like, I complimented the hell out of what's his fucking name? Hold on, let me pull up Discord at a really ill-conceived time. The guy from TTT that I complimented for their match. Oh my god. Yep, sorry. Hold on. Just bear with me. Bear with me. Oh god, I gotta scroll up. It's worth it though. It's worth it. Maybe it's not worth it. Oh man. Hold on. Hold on. Hold. Hold. We can do this. Oh my god, there's so much, like, bullshit and spam. What the fuck is that? Okay, maybe this isn't worth it. Omni snipes. And then he was a fucking squad lead. No. You know what? Never mind. Anyways, the guy that I fucking gave ups for, like, being a high school player. And, oh, Leechy. There we go. Mr. Leech. Yeah, his positioning in that match for the push up to Fagari was great. And, kind of like, he had opportunities to take like pop shots at little birds that had landed like 15 feet away and didn't do it. He just kind of played it safe and knew that he needed to be there as a body to capture the objective as opposed to like kind of sounding the alarm that he was there and all that shit. Anyways, so I'd made that kind of joke or reference in the moment, and then I go to the Discord and I see that he's like one of their fucking like lead guys, and you're like, oh man, you fucking expect like someone that's the number two or the number three in their team or their organization to be like on their P's and Q's. But when it was the hypothetical like potential of just like a Joe on the team having that fucking game knowledge, I was like, yeah, there was something about that fucking invigorated me. So I'm sure that I'm giving this guy like his ups, but he's like the shot caller for the match or something, which will similarly, for no apparent reason, kind of like bring me down. So, anyways, he has a moment. Oh, you know what? That's actually later. My bad. Fuck. I kind of want to jump to that now, just to showcase it. But moving on. Sorry. Just a negative feature of these being live and not edited. Fucking sue me. 2550, 2533, right? So there was this big clump of guys that were kind of on the east side. Sorry, the west. No, yeah, east side. This is north. Of the center objective. They've been here the whole time. They just kind of like hung out. We're thinking about it. What are we gonna do, guys? I don't understand. They go to push back in to the north side of what is now the active objective. Hit a tree, kill one of their guys. Listen, shit happens. I get it. Doubly funny when you consider that Raven is their sniper, which, if anyone's played Squad, I'm not saying anything about Raven, but it's just really fucking funny that, like, the reputation of snipers from Squad. Anyways, so they hit this tree. Cool, whatever. Let's keep it moving. And they all get schwacked. Now, why did this happen? Why did this happen, little Timmy? Come on, bring it back. You can do it. Come on, camera, pan, yeah, whatever. Yep, 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 yep. Bring it up. Bring it up, please. Dear God. All right, so you can see kind of where they're at. They're driving through the field on the edge of this this tree line. What does that actually look like, Sandy? I'm so glad you asked. Because that is this. I know. Screenshots of everything. It's crazy. So they are driving along this tree line right here. Now, you might be thinking, okay, what about it? Big deal. Big whoop. Well, if you're TacGru, you know that they've had this objective. They've defended it. You can assume that they've defended it anyways. So TacGru, you're just going to kind of assume, being charitable, that their defense is like here. And this is actually like, distance wise, you'd expect it to at least be, close to the fucking, that's a 20-minute walk, right up on the command tent. So maybe maybe don't skim the enemy objective. Maybe come, you know, if you're here starting out, wrap around and then come in, you know? And then jut in right here. So I just see this as a logical punishment for, like, what are you doing? So they die. Where are we at? Recording time-wise. 1 hour 29? Oh my fucking god. God, I'm just like micromanaging the shit out of every instance. Let's keep it moving. I'm just like unconsciously compensating for the runtime, the organic runtime of this match. So they do recognize that, like, hey, this isn't working, and now the middle objective isn't in play, so let's go somewhere relevant. They just fuck up in the process, right? You know, with hitting that tree, you know, I mentioned it at the beginning of the recording. That's just a case to make for why, you know, they hit a tree at the beginning of the game as well. It's a case to make for rotating the sides, right? Because then that's not the absolute end of the world. So at 27:27. TacGru push up to the objective. Chi has been fighting here for the last couple of minutes at the least. Okay, now I'm just using this as an opportunity to point out real quick. I've mentioned a couple of times that I think that TacGru's communication is either non-existent or it's just nowhere near where it needs to be. Chi's been fighting over this objective. He's killed a couple of people at the least. You can see where he's at. You know, he's here in a bush on the berm that overlooks the objective. These guys roll up and shred through the command tent like there's going to be enemy here. Did you not just ask Chi before you were rolling up where the enemy was? Hey, is there anyone in the command tent? Like, this whole time they could have just been shooting up the hill or clearing out of the bushes. So, moving on. 27:45. This is a good aerial view to show this is no longer the active objective. So DTG are collapsing down on the next objective, as one does. Shout out to that guy's name being DTG 2692. Is that the leader? You know. Good spread. You get a guy kind of over here. You got a guy over here. These three guys are kind of rapping. You got Carlos over here. Good spread. Good spread. Good communication. Good communication or good planning. And, you know, I think this kind of circles back to some degree, but expect anyways. This circles back to how they rolled out a main. You know, I think they're in two-man squads. So I think if you're on the DTG team and you check the map, you see, like, where half of your team is, because it displays squad leads on the map. Good shit. Good shit. I don't know if there's like a see everyone on your team mod for these matches. I would assume not, but moving on. 29:15, so about 2 minutes into the future. TacGru actually takes the objective back. You can see they got a big concentration of guys that push up, they take it. They take it back, I should say. And then they lose it. More or less. 3047. What the fuck was that? 3047. You got Raven here. This is, so far for the entirety of ARCL, the only person with a sniper rifle that I've seen working it with pistol, which is really funny. He stays in this house for a minute. He's got a bolt action. It looks like a Lynx. It's a 50 cal, so you gotta figure like it's a big fuck off, one hit, one kill. Camera kind of shoots back to him. Maybe? No? I missed it? Of course I did. Alright, whatever. I completely fucking missed it. Yeah, here we go. Okay, so there's a really, this is kind of an interesting sort of a screenshot to see here. You've got a real sniper above this guy, Big Nasty. Big Nasty is, for all intents and purposes, a sniper. He's got a fucking sniper scope. That DMR has an incredible amount of zoom. So you have to wonder, from a logistics point of view, from a planning perspective, what is the, this guy's got the same thing going. What is the value in having someone with a sniper role? There's two things that kind of go there, and it doesn't have anything to do with the map, right? You're talking about one hit, one kill opportunities. Well, that's balanced by the sniper rifles or bolt actions. I don't actually know that the only sniper rifles are on offer for this or bolt actions, but you would assume that that's logically how you would balance that. So that way you can't just walk up to the objective with a one hit kill gun that has 15 rounds and you just bam, 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 hit everything. And it's one hit kill, so it's effective damage at distance as well. Well, you remove that point when everyone's got fucking DMRs with basically the same zoom. How important is that one hit kill ability if it means that you're stuck in this like far distant house for the entirety of the game? You know, all these other guys can push right up on the objective and they can hip fire full auto. You know, their multi-toolness is significantly better. All Raven's gonna do for a fucking minute is take pop shots at people that forget he's there. You know, from his house, he can't do anything about this fighting back here in this tree line right here. Can't help anyone out. So in the Everon match, I was really surprised because that map specifically, everything's on the side of a hill, everything's, all the tree lands are really wide and, you know, easy to see across. That's kind of the joke, especially like the Fagari area, right? And I never saw anyone play with a sniper rifle. And here we've got sort of like locations on a map where sniper rifles don't make sense and there's someone playing with it. So if there's already kind of like a communication issue that's going on TacGru's side, is this also now sort of like a planning or a forethought issue of what's the viability of this role in this area, right? Does Raven absolutely refuse to participate if he can't use a sniper rifle? Or is it just he got bored, they're obviously losing the match, so he's playing with a sniper rifle? You know. But what we can kind of think about from like a leadership perspective or a team perspective is, you know, to what extent do you, how much time do you give that to feel out its viability? You know, if you put a lav in an area on a map and it doesn't kill anything and it's kind of just a nuisance and it's a lot to maintain and they constantly, you know, they cut into comms and call out people that like no one else can do anything about, you know, at what point does that become more of a negative than a positive? And then also, so in that same sort of a way, sniper roles and specialty roles that kind of no one else wants to do or can do, like logistics and stuff like that. That's something that you have to account for from a like a planning perspective and a pacing perspective. You know, do you push that guy up to a different place? Do you ask him to do something else? Is there an alternate angle that he can watch? How does he have to work the land? You know, he's so far back here in this kind of side house that you know, he'll here in a little bit he'll rotate around, but it takes him an absolute fucking millennia to do that because he's all the way out there. And then also something that would be really interesting and challenging. How do we as individual players, you know, this is kind of a philosophical thing that no one's going to agree with me on. What is the purpose of ARCL Season 2? What is the purpose of this tournament? What is the purpose of any tournament that goes on this year? Is it to do absolutely anything to win this year? Or is it to be in a good place to win a tournament or a set of tournaments 2 years from now, right? The reality is that we're all kind of bottom tier. I say we, but I don't have a fucking team. We're all bottom tier right now. We're all feeling this thing out. We're figuring this out. You know, ARCL's perspective is like trying to, hopefully, you would assume, is trying to feel out like, maybe map control isn't the play. Maybe we do something with tickets and assessing that and XYZ, whatever. Maybe we play around with the maps that are on offer. Maybe we change away from this and maybe we do that, right? Well, as an individual, you should be kind of thinking about that stuff too. So, if you're the sniper role, if you're the AT role, what situations are you putting yourself in? Are you only setting yourself up with unchallenging, sort of comfortable spots, right? Raven in that house is probably pretty comfortable. He's got the lighting disparity going on because it's a base game house, so everyone that's looking in, it's probably pitch fucking black in there. Um, and then he can look out on people and it's perfectly fucking daytime, right? So he's got that going for him. He's at kind of like a comfortable off angle. If anyone pushes into the field, which literally no one should at any point, um, then he's got that covered. If a vehicle comes down the road, he doesn't really have to do a whole lot. He knows that his round will probably punch through an average like Humvee window or whatever the fuck, right? But ask yourself, so hypothetically ask yourself if you're Raven, right? Like, what's my relevance? Again, multi-tool. What's my relevance? What am I not suited for right now? Hey, how long does he have to stay in that building to go, God, I'm not really, I'm not really working for my team right now. What can I do? Because what would be really fucking cool and a really cool skill set as a sniper is actually to be like a DMR and a sniper, you know? It'd be fucking sick if you saw that guy take a couple, he just got into the area, just walked it in, cracked a couple good long range shots, and then got out of that house, swapped to like an ACOG or like a red dot, and then pushed it in on, closed the distance and used his one hit kill gun to just make shit happen up close like the rest of the people, right? That'd be fucking sick. That's a lot of like range to show. And it's a challenge. But same thing with like AT roles. Like, are you only setting yourself up in positions where you know for sure you can get the shot? Well, you're only going to get better at like taking long range shots or mid range shots or off angles and stuff like that by just sending them. Yeah, so just kind of want to point that out in an effort to bring the runtime for this video up. That's a joke, by the way. So we're at 3220 at 3330. Oh, I've got another. I've got, hold on. Jumping. TacGru take them. Snipers distance. Yeah, and that too. Like, is having a sniper role on a 10v10 worthwhile? Kind of almost forgot to mention that. Like, you're gonna give up a guy and like you've only got 7 to work with or 8. If you've got 2 logistics guys and a heli. Eh. Grenadier rolls 31, 35. All right, so Carlos is here. Sorry, my bad. Louise is here, and then Wool is here. So this right here, he kills him, but this is the value in Grenadier rolls and arguably light machine guns. Why are people letting themselves get into these positions? If you're walking down the road and you're coming up on this pair of bushes, just throw GLs into both of them. 3150. Harry over here, right? Got the gangster lean, right? He's leaning around the tree. Gangster. 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 If I can make a clip out of this, I will, without pissing too many people off. Stop leaning. It doesn't account for like the other stuff, especially fundamentals that you're not doing well. It's not saving you. Stop doing it. It just fucking bothers me. 3230. This is a section where we're actually going to have sound. 3230. So you've got this guy that's this is at this point in the video there's a little bit of a back and forth, right? DTG hasn't taken this objective back yet, so they respawned people on defense just in case. And Big Nasty is here with Riki. Make sure this is good. There's nothing actually special about this. The rate of fire sound just sounds weird. It seems like everyone in DTG is using light machine guns and ordinary rifles. I haven't heard anyone use a DMR. This kind of sounds like a DMR, but it also sounds like too consistent. I thought they removed full auto from all of the DMRs. So this just sounds like too, if you were just spamming the mouse, if you were just getting after it, it wouldn't sound kind of like uniform like this does. This just sounds like he's got full auto, but it's a slow rate of fire. Just want to see if anyone else keys into this. Yeah. Yeah. Play it again. Doesn't that sound weird to anyone else? I'm not saying anything. I'm just, moving on. 3230, 3124. 3120? No, 3310. Yeah, right number, wrong number. 3310. Oh, this is kind of what I was talking about earlier. Keeled here, right? So DTG is taking back the objective. Fair and square. TacGru pushes a couple of guys up to kind of contest it, but DTG haven't, right? Keeled, I think, is the... Now, maybe I'm ascribing way more intelligence than is necessarily true, but this is the first time that I've seen... I haven't talked to any of these guys. This is the first time that I think I'm seeing Canary play, right? He's standing on a tall central object, and if he dies, everyone in the area will kind of know. So that's kind of like a sensor. But he's also expecting all these guys right down here in the town. Raven's still sniping, right? This is kind of where all these guys are running in from. They're using the low wall, right? So he's kind of doing two things here. But again, I liked the concept that someone was finally doing this canary stuff. So moving on. God, the quality of life for this video is way, way less than the Everon video, huh? It's because there's really... I'm just stretching. It's really nothing to comment on. 3354. Right, so he's working this fucking command tent. Shout out, if I can make a meme of, like... Has anyone seen The Fifth Element where oh god, what's the character's name? It's like one of the very beginning scenes. He's like showcasing like booby trapped weapons, but the aliens that he's selling the weapons to don't know they're booby trapped. But he's showcasing that like you don't even have to aim for the one weapon for its rounds to like hit its target. If I could make, you know, that if I could supplant that into this. That's kind of what that just looks like. Yeah, he's like, and all his fucking rounds are still hitting like basically where Goosty is. Full auto is a fucking joke in these games. Hops off the command tent though, right? Kind of works his thing, gets known, and then he pulls back and wraps around, right? So he's identified that they're using the low wall. He wraps around. Come on. And he just goes to work a new angle with that in mind, right? Sets himself up so that way he can see basically the edge of the low wall. What's happening? Jesus. Very nice. Very nice. Now, at some point, though, I keep glazing the skilled guy, right? So my legitimate talking point for this is from a team management perspective, you're going to have all sorts of characters and personalities. You're going to have all sorts of quote unquote talent to manage. You're going to have people that want to play with their friends. You're going to have people that don't work well with others. You're going to have people that really only work well by themselves. You're going to have people that are okay when you put them in squad environments. You're going to have people that fucking smash the enemy in ways that like you can't articulate when you just let them kind of be alone and like work the ground, right? No one's telling Guild where he can go and can't go. No one's telling this guy like, hey, don't push that forward, or hey, just hold on, wait for us to like, cover you or push up, or hey, throw a smoke first. No one's telling that guy anything like that. Maybe because he's a fucking leadership dude, so no one can tell this guy that. But, on the off chance, these are the positives for giving people the leash. If you're a dog walker and you're walking 7 dogs at once, some dogs need a little bit more leash than the others, right? This is really good talent management. Uh, be people should kind of know already, good luck, what they're working with the people that are on their team, to the extent of like that's why you should be assembling squads in certain ways. We're going to throw 2 of the best shooters in the offense squad, and that'll mean that we can actually put more people technically on defense because they oscillate with each other well. They don't need to be good gunfighters. There's more of them. So like in that same way, you're going to have people that are on your team that actually really do their thing when they're solo. And if you kind of leash movement like this, play like this, knowing he doesn't have to communicate probably like what he's going to do before he does it, he just works it, um, he'd probably be 80% less effective. Mid match begins. I know, 5 years later at 35-27. The kind of tone flip for this, the beginning of the match is really, a good bit of. It's a vibe, right? It doesn't necessarily correlate to any one particular action, and mid match is going to start even with the same action at different times in these recordings or in these analysis videos, really, based on the teams that are playing. It's effectively like stuff that you can't recover from. And the moment that I'm kind of bookmarking for this is their TacGru, your, not that this went anywhere near time, but like your 30 minutes basically into the match, you're not getting signal back, you're done fighting over that, right? So, 3711. Same sort of thing that happened kind of earlier in the game. You know, they've DTG hold an objective for a little bit, and they're kind of like, all right, what's coming? What's coming? Nothing's coming? All right, then let's go feel out that next objective. So you've got these guys that are wrapping around big nasties already there, basically, feeling it out. Good shit. Good transitions, right? You're going to find that when you're in these matches, if you're reflective enough or introspective enough, um, feeling out when to make calls, when to make decisions, when's what feels right is one of the harder things to develop as a quote unquote squad lead. Um, and this is a great example of it working out well. 3310. No, way more forward from that. Why was I looking at that? 3850. All right. So now this is kind of jumped forward to the next objective, which, just to clarify, is TacGru's first objective. They've got 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, no, sorry. This is a guy that's at main. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people on defense. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Actually, is that guy? No, he's there. Which, you know, when you're looking at that, could seem a little light based on the pacing of the game. But you have to remember, and it's kind of what's fucked about like the 20v20s and then the 10v10s, is this is probably still half of their team, right? So the comment that I'm kind of the more informed comment. So the lowbrow thing to think is like, wow, that's like no one on defense. The fuck? All you guys have been doing is losing the game, basically. Aren't you? Weren't you leaning into the thing that, you know, you could at least do well? You're not doing offense well. You could at least do defense better. The scholarly take though is why do you even still have people on logistics? Why are there only why is there an offense? I guess is what I'm trying to say. Why is anyone anywhere else? That probably didn't make any sense. Moving on. Let's close out this fucking video, to be honest. 3913. So you got Lime that's kind of above the town. You've got Ghost B over here, gets a good blow up on the outskirts of the town, kind of. These guys push in from the side. So again, DTG just really good at spacing out, really good at positioning, not just pushing everyone in from one same angle, right? So Lime's up above. This guy wraps around, cuts in. Never go prone. Never do it. Just handle what you can without forcing yourself through an animation. Kills 2. And then Lime downs the other guy. There's still a guy up over here, but it's really good play. Really good play. Played against expectations. You know, I talked about that earlier with Keeled, kind of working TacGru's second objective, but 42-22. So TacGru's main is over here. There's nothing over here. 42 to 22. You can see that there's a bunch of people here on the east side of the town. Their objective is here. So I just thought it was interesting that, like, TacGru felt that the only way they could push into their objective, there's only two guys there. Yeah, at the very least, when you died here, you could tell that it wasn't the entire enemy team. Um, these guys feel that they have to push in from this incredible off angle from such a distance so that way they don't get shit on, dropping off right here. Which again, I think just showcases kind of that like mentality difference, and that's why I differentiate between the beginning of the game or the match start and then mid match and then end match or the end of the game. 43, 40, 43, 34. All right, so this is the flip side, basically, of how DTG pushed in, because now you've got TacGru that are working the east side, and you're going to see that they have kind of the same sort of success because it's the same angles. It's part of why I wish that we did map flips. So Kraz over here pushes in. This is both a positive comment and a negative comment, right? His positioning is good. He could crush in right here. I know, word choice. But he doesn't. He kind of keeps it to the outside. Keeps working. Now, there's something here that you wouldn't ordinarily catch if you were just watching this, right? So, stop doing that. Yeah, shooting from over here from the TacGru guys. Kill here in this barn. Get guys that are pushing close. They're gonna shoot at kill as well. Bam, they're throwing nades at him. Kill shoots at him. Kills Chi. Downs Chi. Oh, or not. That looks weird. Ghost. Fucking come on. This is why the one camera angle sucks. Where's it at? Yeah, whatever. Anyways, Kraz, his expectation is over here, or he's looking at the barn, right? Kind of nothing else exists for him. He's tunnel visioning really bad. He's working the outside of the objective. He's not pushing right in, but he's not really accounting for the space. And he tunnel visions super goddamn hard. Now, right about here is, I think, what I was kind of looking for, but I got lost. So these guys are alive right here. Kale's in the barn proper by this point. They're kind of exchanging gunfire with Ghost over here at this shed. So Kraz is kind of moving to get an angle on what he thinks is the only guy that's here. That's why he's tunnel visioning so hard, and then he dies for it. So just a reminder, you never know actually what the fuck is going on in any given area. So just take your time, just slow it down, right? He had a good angle. He was coming in from a great side, from Lima Bravo's view. All these guys are up over here. So, Kraz could have just hung out by the generator. He's basically here on the objective and just waited for someone to kind of walk in. You have to ask yourself to a certain degree if you're pushing into to do, offense or defense. If you're pushing into an area that you don't already own, right? What's good enough? What position do you have to be standing on top of the command tent to go like, all right, you know, let's wait for just a second. Couldn't you just hang out over here? Couldn't you hang out over here? What if you wrapped around and used the field? What if you just stood right here? Right? You got to ask yourself, at what point am I just like a glint or a glimmer that catches someone's eye fucking over here. 4711. So they fucking use DTG uses a helicopter to get an initial drop of logistics on this base. They've got a logistics truck. If you want to see the full match, watch the fucking recording, nerds. They've got an actual logistics truck that's coming up, but just to sustain initial spawning here, they've got this helicopter dropping off, so that way 3-4 people can spawn in, and then by that time the logistics truck will kind of show up. But this is the first time. I always complain that it seems like no one's using their helicopter to scout. This is the first time that I've ever seen someone use their helicopter to scout, right? So everyone kind of died off of this objective. They don't really know like where TacGru is at. They're gonna spin up this helicopter and they're gonna fly right over the objective, right? There's 2 constants in life in this game. 1, if someone has an opportunity to take a distant headshot on you, they will do it, even if it is to their absolute detriment. 2nd, people are unwilling to not shoot at a helicopter that's flying by. So this is a great fucking magnet tool for scouting, and he can fucking whip his camera around to look left and right and see who's where, right? So bam, like right here, I bet as he's flying by, he's looking right at the command tent. Probably sees Chi here in these trees, sees that there's basically no one on the command tent, and then a bunch of people kind of shoot at him in the process. That's also an opportunity for him to kind of feel that out. Good shit. 51:09, 4 minutes away from the end. What is this? 51:09. Oh, yeah. So DTG, they've been fighting over the town, which is effectively the top of the hill from the objective for a little bit now. TacGru kind of feels that they need to do something special here. They're not really making it work organically. So they actually wrap. Come on. Did I not show it well? Come on. You can do it. There we go. So they're wrapping to come up to this objective. Relieve some pressure, okay? If you're doing this, timing. It's supposed to be a quick thing. Not a hangout thing. You need to be on that fucking objective, fighting over it right now. That's what that needs to be, and it wasn't. Really common to see from people, not that I'm particularly picking on TacGru. The end of the match begins at 56:17. Lavs spawn in. So this is just a really funny kind of thing. So DTG's lav play is one-manned. And it's kind of just here to be an annoyance, to be a nuisance. Meanwhile, at 56:47, this is TacGru's lav, 2-manned. Okay, so I feel that ARCL Season 2 is an opportunity for people to feel out stuff. So a lot of this jank is okay in my book. Let's try the dumb stuff and let's kind of shake out the jiggles. And then let's get serious with next year, maybe. So if you're going to include armor, two-man it. Why do you two-man armor? So that way you can always be on the move. So that way you can reposition. You can work an area and then you can drive away. So that way RPGs and stuff can't touch you, right? So I just really thought it was funny when I was watching this because I was like, oh, one-man armor. To be fair, like you kind of know that this is at the end of the game. Um, just fucking fucking around probably from TGG's perspective. From TacGru's perspective, they need this lav to do things, and it is not. But it's two-manned. You're not utilizing this fucking driver. The advantage of having a driver and a gunner is you shoot and you move. You can react to situations and stuff. Why are you just fucking sitting here? And because they're just sitting here, they just die on the objective. Could have drove through town or done something, you know what I'm saying? Which probably wouldn't have been like a good answer either, but like you know that there's an enemy lav in town that could have been a cool like armor fight or yeah. So I don't know. As a watcher at the very least, that was fucking sucky. 56-20. No, actually, that was that. And then the match ends at 1 hour, 4 minutes, and 40 seconds, which I only have here really as a note because, and we'll play up to it. They're basically retaking the objective, right? So DTG has had the last objective, and I believe that there is an informal timer that starts because obviously you can't fucking see anything like at the top of the screen. Um, so it, informal timer. Well, if it's an informal timer, that fucking sucks. Because why have a timer at all if it doesn't interrupt when the base is being retaken, right? Because Kraz pushes in, Gaz is right here on the objective, Goosty hops over the low wall right there. They've got the bodies to stop the cap, and not only stop the cap, but to retake the objective. It's just fucking Keeldy here, and this other guy right here, you can kind of see his symbol, Ghost. But like, but the match still ends at like a minute and 4, which just fucking sucks in my book. I don't know, man. Like, at this point, like I said, the end game starts at 56 minutes. Play from that point on is just about getting good exchanges, good gunfights, good rocket hits, good little micro flanks. You know you're not going to win the game, but like, hey, fuck it. Let's slug it out for a little bit, you know? Don't interrupt that. That's some of like the best not only fun but opportunity to engage your guys. You'll get the best trades right here, right? For most of the match, in any given match, you're going to be tense. You're going to be conservative. You're going to be thinking about how to like hold your resources. Maybe we hold off on that and instead we go here and do this and this. Even though these guys are fucking losing, dude, you're right next to their main. They're just running it in and trying to make stuff work. That's fun. That's engaging. It fucking sucks that they ended the match here. Really, really, really shit. Just gonna be honest, really shit. So, anyways, that's the fucking recording. I don't know. After I did the Evron video, I was thinking, I'm not really like closing out these videos with a whole lot like my thoughts or anything. At the same time, I don't think that's really the purpose of these videos. It's really just to kind of point at and give prescient thoughts on what's happening in the moment, and then when the moment's gone, you just fucking end the video. But if anyone would kind of like to hear me go more in depth with some of like canary play or like what the advantages and disadvantages are for certain squad sizes and what kind of communication should look like and all that stuff, then click into some of the podcast material. That's kind of where we're posting a lot of that. So, anyways, Thanks for watching with me. Remember at the video at the beginning of the video when I said that this probably wasn't even gonna make it to an hour long, and then I stretched it to like another 2-hour video. Yeah, that was crazy.